everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 bringing to another edition of the Wrestling Discussion Series. And April 5th, 1999 marks 26 years ago that history was made on Raw when the unlikely duo of Kane and X Pac teamed up for the first time ever and defeated Jeff Jarrett and Owen Hart to win the WWF Tag Team titles, thus kicking off a partnership that for most of 1999. And for today's special edition, I am going to be discussing the success and failures of Kane and X Pac's tag team run from April 1999 to October 1999. So, 1999 was a very strange year because we saw a lot of unlikely teams coming together for the first time, and it featured two guys who were the complete polar opposites to one another, but somehow these guys worked together very well. We saw The Rock and Mankind, who started out as very fierce rivals and engaged in a very brutal and violent war before setting aside their differences to become a comedic duo dubbed the Rock and Sock Connection. We also saw Undertaker and Big Show, who were gigantic foes, coming together for the first time as the Unholy Alliance. But there was one team that, on paper, looked like it was going to be a complete disaster because of their personalities and how they were completely polarizing opposites, came through the cracks, formed a brotherly bond, and cemented themselves as one of the most unlikely and beloved duos of all time. And that was, of course, Kane and X Pac. And their combination of strength and quickness made them a very entertaining and exciting team. And you wouldn't really necessarily put Kane and X Pac in the same room together. Kane was the silent and violent monster who didn't know the difference between right or wrong. All he knew was one thing, and that was destruction. And you also had on the other side, you had X Pac, who was very brash, very loud, and very cocky, but at the same time, very athletic and was not afraid of defying authority. So when these two came together, a lot of people, including the commentators, said these guys won't last. They're completely different. Kane could probably turn on X Pac at any moment. It's just got all the ingredients to be a disaster. But Kane and X Pac surprised everybody, and as I said, not only formed a very strong brotherly bond, but became one, if not the most beloved tag team of 1999. Although I would probably give the Rock and Sock Connection a little bit of a nod simply because of who the two guys were. That was The Rock and Mankind. But Kane and X Pac were definitely up there, and they lasted a lot longer than most people gave them credit for. But for me personally, if there was one tag team that really stood out in 1999, it was definitely Kane and X Pac. So Kane and X Pac in the first half of 1999 were kind of like lost souls, so to speak. At the start of the year, they were on opposing sides. Kane was part of Vince McMahon's Heel Corporation and was basically forced to do the boss's dirty work. And if Kane refused, he would be sent back to the insane asylum where he would stay for the rest of his life. And you had X Pac, who was riding a huge wave of popularity and success as a member of D-Generation X, a faction that he joined the night after WrestleMania 14 when Triple H took over the leadership role of the group from Shawn Michaels and recruited X Pac to form what they dubbed as the DX Army. So DX and the corporation were on opposing sides and they butted heads really badly. So the anti authority group versus the authoritative group. So that was what was going on in the first half of 1999. And of course, when China turned on DX and joined the corporation, she and Kane became this very strange tag team and they feuded with X Pac and Triple H. So at WrestleMania 15, as we all know, Triple H turned on DX and more specifically X Pac, and he joined the corporation with China. And this would leave Kane out of the corporation and on his own. So Kane was by himself. DX, for all intents and purposes, was pretty much done. Billy Gunn obviously turned on X Pac, leaving just X Pac and Road Dogg as the only two DX members. Now, the formation of this unlikely tag team didn't get off to a great start. It wasn't smooth sailing. In the earlier part of the year, X Pac approached Kane about leaving the corporation and possibly joining D-Generation X. Kane, of course, in typical fashion, responded with a chokeslam as his way of saying, not interested. But after Triple H joined the corporation and ditched DX, as I mentioned, Kane was on his own and X Pac was trying to be Kane's friend, reaching out to him, sometimes coming to his rescue, and of course, Kane making it very clear, I'm not interested, I don't want to team up with you, just leave me alone, I'm a monster. Non verbally, of course. But then, over the course of a few weeks, when X Pac would get attacked, Kane would come to his rescue, but of course he would still attack X Pac anyway. But you could clearly see that something was going to happen. Could these two unlikely guys come together for a greater purpose and do the right thing? We would soon get that answer on the April 5th, 1999 edition of Raw. Kane and X Pac would officially team up for the first time ever. And even though there was a lot of awkwardness and a lot of tension from both guys, they surprisingly worked very well together and they defeated Owen Hart and Jeff Jarrett to become the tag team champions. So now this unlikely duo were the new WWF tag team champions, and the question was now asked, can these two unlikely partners get along and actually coexist as tag team champions? And could Kane actually trust X Pac? And the other question, of course, was how would this affect his friendship with his DX teammates, Billy Gunn and Road Dogg, also known as the New Age Outlaws? So, as I said earlier, when you look at Kane and X Pac on paper, especially at that time, you think to yourself, this can't work. Kane is Kane, and X Pac, his personality just doesn't go with Kane's because Kane hasn't really got any. But they did work very well together, and they would defend the tag team titles against everyone, including the New Age Outlaws. And throughout the rest of 1999, they would remain tag team champions, and they would drop it to the Acolytes in May. But the bond between Kane and X Pac would remain as strong as ever, as they would gain lots of fan support. And also, while they were a tag team, Kane and X Pac would also feud with other wrestlers. Kane would be feuding with The Big Show, and X Pac would be mixing it up with his former DX teammate Billy Gunn. But all the while, these two remained much on the same page. But their partnership would be tested in the summer of 1999 when Kane's brother, The Undertaker, would start to try and lure Kane away from X Pac in the hopes of having his brother rejoin him back on the dark side. The same brother who stabbed him in the back in 1988. So, the interesting thing about the partnership of Kane and X Pac was the whole time they were teaming, you could slowly start to see Kane coming out of his shell. He was still very much a monster in the ring, but now he was able to tell the difference between right and wrong. It took a bit of work, but you could see underneath that Kane was actually really a good person who just had a raw deal in life. And thanks to his bond with X Pac, he was becoming more like a normal person, but still very intimidating and scary to his opponents. So around this time, Kane had a decision to make: stay with his friend and tag team partner X Pac, or rejoin his brother, The Undertaker, on the dark side. So a huge choice for Kane. Now, initially, it looked like Kane was going to rejoin The Undertaker back on the dark side, as both guys would plead their cases as to why Kane should go with them. Undertaker accused Kane of being a softie and not being a monster anymore. How ironic is that? And X Pac, being the friend that he was, told Kane, look, I know he's your brother, but he's already stabbed you in the back before. At least with me, I'm straight with you. You know, don't go with Undertaker. He can't be trusted. But of course, Undertaker made the same case as well. Look, I'm your brother. I won't make you choose. You know what you have to do. And even Undertaker warned Kane that X Pac would eventually stab him in the back. Oh boy, those words would come back to haunt him. So, all throughout the summer of 1999, Kane had a big decision to make. Whose side was Kane on? The Undertaker's or X Pac's? The question would finally be answered on the Raw Go Home show before Fully Loaded 99, when Undertaker chokeslammed X Pac behind Kane's back, and Kane obviously did not see this happening. Undertaker turned to Kane and said, "It's over. Let's go." And just before Kane would leave, he would see a replay on the Titantron of Undertaker destroying X Pac, and he realized that The Undertaker had no interest in teaming up with him whatsoever. He was just manipulating him once again. And Kane would finally make his decision and deliver a huge chokeslam and receive a massive pop as he embraced X Pac. Kane was now finally a human being, much to the anger of The Undertaker. Now, this was really good storytelling because, you know, throughout the first half of 1999, Kane and Undertaker didn't really have much involvement with each other. which is understandable because we saw a lot of them going at it in 1988. But in the summer of 1999, I quite enjoyed that little storytelling going on about the idea of Kane possibly turning on X Pac and going back to the dark side with The Undertaker. I mean, everything worked out fine, but it was interesting because, you know, this unlikely team got off to such a shaky start. And after working out all the bugs and Kane building up his confidence, you know, it was interesting because, would Kane actually do it? Obviously, he didn't, but it made things really interesting. So, after Fully Loaded 99, of course, we saw The Undertaker and The Big Show join forces to form the Unholy Alliance. And this would kick off a feud between two unlikely teams, the Unholy Alliance of The Undertaker and The Big Show, and the unlikely duo of Kane and X Pac. So Kane and X Pac would win the tag team titles for a second time from the Acolytes, and another interesting moment happened. After Kane and X Pac were celebrating, X Pac got on the mic and said, "Hey, this has been a long time coming. If you ain't down with me and the Big Red Machine as the tag team champions, Kane has got two words for you." And everyone was surprised, even JR was like, "What? Kane's got two words for us?" And Kane went to grab his speech device, and X-Pac took it off him and said, "No, you don't need this anymore. The fans want to hear you without this thing. Let's hear it. Come on." And King was like, "Kane's going to have two words for us?" And the two words that came out of his mouth were, "Suck it." Oh, God. And Kane said his first official words without the speech device, and this cemented Kane's popularity even more. Now, I know some people said, "Oh, but Kane and X Pac's partnership made Kane too human." Yes, to a point, but Kane still kicked ass in the ring, so you can't knock the results. Was Kane better as a silent monster in the early years? Oh, absolutely. Goes without saying. But I think Kane needed this run. He needed something different because Undertaker and Kane, as successful as they are as a team, and we love them, we all do, but I think Kane needed to work with other people because by the summer of 1999, we'd seen Kane and Undertaker quite enough. So Kane needed something fresh, and having a degenerate like X Pac worked. And the thing about X Pac, and he doesn't really get a lot of credit for this, you know, he's a cruiserweight, but his style works so well with bigger guys. The only other person I can think of who can have that sort of chemistry with a big guy is, of course, X Pac's click brother and longtime best friend, Shawn Michaels. But Shawn Michaels is a completely different animal to X Pac. But what X Pac was able to do for Kane is not only humanize him as a character, but in some ways, I think X Pac made Kane a better wrestler. I don't really know how because when Kane is with The Undertaker, he is quick, but it's a lot more slower. It's a lot more methodical, and it's almost like a zombie haunting like style, and of course brawling as well. But when Kane is with X Pac, he's a lot more faster. He is flying off the ropes. He's doing all these crazy things for a big guy. So I think X Pac made Kane probably a little bit more versatile. He was certainly a lot more athletic when he was with him. And I did notice during their partnership, Kane really got in shape. He was very, very slim as opposed to his run with The Undertaker in '98. I mean, Kane was still a muscular powerhouse, but he did have a little bit of a gut on him. But with X Pac, he really lost huge weight and was probably the quickest I've ever seen him. And also, Kane debuted new ring attire, this reverse attire of his original, which I absolutely love it. I think that's probably my favorite Kane attire. You know, the top part was all dark red, and the bottom part was all black, and the mask was red and black, but it was more black. And I just thought he looked incredible. I thought, wow, he actually changed his attire. You know, we never really saw that with the Undertaker. You know, Kane changing his attire, which he didn't really. He made little changes, but he never went the whole hog. He never went a complete transformation. And I think the partnership did work. I mean, they were very popular, these two. They were very over. So Kane and X Pac would lose the tag team titles to The Undertaker and The Big Show at SummerSlam '99. But then over the course of time, we would slowly start to see cracks in the partnership of Kane and X Pac as X Pac would more or less not ditch him as such, but he would say to Kane, "Look, I appreciate your help. I want you to stay out of my match." And he would start to yell at him, even though Kane was trying to be there for him. And of course, we kind of saw these two go at it a little bit in a fatal four-way match at No Mercy '99, which featured Farouk and Bradshaw of the Acolytes. But X Pac and Kane still remained on the same page. They were still a tag team, but you could see the writing was on the wall. And then DX reunited as heels with Triple H, X Pac, and New Age Outlaws. X Pac reassured Kane that don't worry, the DX thing is just something I'm doing on the side. You and me, we're best friends, we're tight. That's what matters. We're brothers, you and me. So don't worry about a thing. And it looked like finally Kane would actually join DX. Now, I have seen a picture, and I know it's not real, but I did see a picture of Kane in green and black attire. Ugh. I think that was a possibility of going down that route. I'm so glad they didn't go down that route because that would have just ruined the whole Kane character going down a bright green and black path in that sort of attire. It just would have looked horrible. And on SmackDown, X Pac turned on Kane and told him that there's not going to be a new member of DX because you're a piece of crap and your brother was right about you. You are weak. You are pathetic. And I'm sick and tired of carrying your ass around. That's it. You and me are done. We're through. And that pretty much spelled the end of X Pac and Kane's partnership as a tag team. And they would go on to have an epic rivalry, which I am going to be talking about on this series. But, you know, it's quite amazing when you think about it. When Kane and X Pac first got together as a tag team, nobody, not even me, expected it to last long. I thought maybe a couple of weeks they'll drop the tag team titles and that's it. They actually went on to have a 6 month run as a tag team. That is crazy, you know, but it worked. It really worked. Kane and X Pac had amazing chemistry. Kane's strength, and X Pac's quickness made them a formidable tag team, and they were very entertaining as well. You know, Kane's silence and X Pac's loudness just worked, and it worked very well. And it was interesting because when they actually came together as a tag team, they even merged their themes, their Titantrons, where Kane's music would play first, and then you have the DX music come out after. And seeing Kane coming out in DX music was quite unusual because he had this big monster in the mask coming out to DX music. It was unusual, but it was interesting. I thought, okay, maybe they've got plans to make Kane a member of DX at some point. I'm not sure how that would have worked if they did end up going down that path, but I prefer Kane on his own or with The Undertaker or with Paul Bearer, but we got to see Kane try out different things, things, you probably would have said, nah, no thanks, that'll ruin it. But it worked. It really worked. And as I said earlier, Kane came out of this very popular, and he became a very sympathetic figure after the breakup. And it just did wonders for him. It just made Kane more beloved. And of course, it put X Pac over as a hated heel with bucket loads of heat. And, to have a partnership like that, to go from, you know, being a team for 6 months and then breaking up, I think they did a good job starting it at the right time and ending it at the right time. They didn't drag it out for too long because they did what they had to do. They told the story they needed to tell, and for the most part, it worked out very well. And both of these guys came out of it stronger than ever because when you look at when they first started at the beginning, I kind of got the impression that creative just didn't know what to do with Kane and X Pac, so they just put these two together to give them something to do. But what started out as something to do ended up being the best work of each other's respective careers. And they worked really well together, Kane and X Pac. I think out of all of the tag team partners Kane has had in his career, barring The Undertaker, we all know his place. I would say X Pac was the best partner Kane ever had. He really turned him around and just made him better. He made him more of an interesting character because I think, as cool as the monster thing was, you can only do that for so long. So you've got to give him a bit of a personality, and X Pac definitely helped play an important role in Kane's development. And as I said, for the most part, it worked really well. So, in terms of the success and failures of Kane and X Pac's tag team run, I'm going to say, for the most part, it was a complete success. The partnership allowed Kane to do different things, show a bit more emotion, show a bit more personality. He even got to speak, even debuted brand new attire, something he hadn't done when he made his debut in '97. And we got to see him more thinking on his own rather than just someone telling him what to do. And he was very entertaining. And that whole storyline where he had to choose between X Pac and The Undertaker was probably my favourites because, you know, Kane has always been one of those guys. He's easily tricked into doing something. But it was cool to see Kane pretty much turn around and say to The Undertaker, no, I won't be going back to the dark side with you. I'm staying with X Pac. He's my partner. He's my best friend. I don't need you. And it was good because You know, while it was cool to see a reunion between Kane and Undertaker in '99, Kane and Undertaker, we seen it a lot of times by that point, so it was cool to see something different, and it was refreshing to see Kane as a face and Undertaker as a heel. It's a dynamic that we didn't really see that much in their whole run, but I think the whole partnership worked out very well. Kane and X Pac had great chemistry, not just in the ring, but out of the ring as well. And they had some really good matches. They had some great fun matches against the Acolytes, the New Age Outlaws, and Owen Hart and Jeff Jarrett. And surprisingly, The Undertaker and The Big Show. I thought they had a really good match at SummerSlam '99. And the interesting thing about Kane and X Pac's run as a tag team, they lasted 6 months, but they only competed as a team on pay per view once. And that's quite strange because, you know, you would have thought for a tag team like Kane and X Pac to have lasted as long as they did, you would have expected them to have had more matches together on pay per view. But honestly, they didn't. A lot of their matches they had as a team were mostly on Raw and then eventually later on SmackDown. So the only match they had was at SummerSlam '99, and it was a good one. It was a pretty good match. It was certainly the most physical and emotional match that Kane X Pac had as a team, and I would have liked to have seen maybe another match, maybe Kane and X Pac versus the Rock and Sock Connection at a pay per view. If they had continued on for another month, perhaps. Battle of the most unlikely teams. I think that could have been a fun match. But, you know, during this partnership, as I said, Kane and X Pac put out some really good work from their respective careers. And I think taking a risk and putting these two together paid off. So that's why I'm going with the fact that the Kane and X Pac partnership was a huge success because they were very popular and they were beloved and over with the fans. So that's why I'm going with the fact that these two were hugely successful. So that's going to be it from me. I'm going to wrap this up now. What was your thoughts on Kane and X Pac's run as a tag team in 1999? Did you enjoy it? Did you have any reservations about Kane and X Pac as a tag team? Were you concerned it may not last long? And did you think these two had great chemistry together? And do you think X Pac helped play an important role in Kane's character development? And what was your favourite moments from Kane and X Pac's tag team run? Was it Kane's first words, Kane debuting his new attire at SummerSlam '99, or was it when Kane chose X Pac over The Undertaker? And what was your favorite match from Kane and X Pac's tag team run? Was it the matches against Owen Hart and Jeff Jarrett, the match against the New Age Outlaws, or SummerSlam '99 against The Undertaker and The Big Show? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Wrestling Discussion Series. So until then, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.